I'm going to try and go through the books fast because I know this is mainly a knitting channel, but maybe you like to read as well. Hello! Welcome to EB Knits. My name is Emily, the maker of everything you see here on this channel. Thank you so much for being here. Normally, it's vlogs every 2 weeks all about my making, specifically knitting, and lately a little bit of crochet thrown in. But today I'm coming at you with a little bit of a different video. I have really been into, if you follow my vlogs you know, book talk lately, or booktube I should say, and they share their favorite books. So I'm going to do that too. But I'm going to add another element because this is a knitting and crafting channel. I'm going to have two. So I'm going to take these points and I'll tell you the relevant book, but I'm going to go even deeper into the knit, crochet, fiber art element that I am going to translate the point over to as well, because they're not just book specific. I think you can definitely carry them over into the fiber arts. So that's what I'm going to try and do today. Hopefully this works. So I've got my laptop in front of me if I'm looking down, but I've got Ravelry as well as the Storygraph. So Ravelry is of course where I check all my knitting projects, and then the Storygraph is where I check or where I track my book and my books and readings. So I've got those up in front of me as well as the points to address for this mid-year Freakout tag questions. So let's get into it. A few stats before we get started. So knitting wise, we'll talk about that first. I have not knit as many projects as I would have liked by now. Okay, wait. Also, I just touched my shirt, so I want to show you. did not knit this year. I knit this last year. It is the Shelly Summer Top by Nancy Ricci. I'm getting pearly with it. It is a wonderful top. Knit in Amano cotton yarns. It's crazy soft. I recommend the pattern and the yarn. So that, now that I said that, before I forgot, let's go back to the knitting statistics. So I've been just working on simple, smaller projects while I'm reading my textbook and things like that. So I'm not devoting as much time as I did, say, last year to knitting, unfortunately. But I'm still loving it. These are my completed objects that I'm about to share with you. I might reference I have all my projects here next to me so that I can show you as well what I'm talking about. I might reference some works in progress, we'll see. But as far as finished object goes for this year, I've got 2 summer bucket hats, I've got 2 pairs of shorts, a shawl, 5 beanies. Actually, that's not even true. I've probably got 15 beanies, a headband, a cardigan, which is a gift from my mom, and a crochet blanket. So that is the rundown of all of my knits this year. But we'll get into it in depth when we address the questions. As far as reading stats, I have read 12 books this year. In terms of, so the Storygraph is really great. I highly recommend it. So I've read 12 books, like I said, 4,062 pages, which is honestly a lot for me. The top mood I have read is emotional, and then reflective and lighthearted are my top 3 moods. I've mainly read fiction. Only 8% of my books have been nonfiction. 92% have been fiction. And then in terms of genre, no surprise if you know me, I've read 6 historical fiction, which is actually I'm a little bit surprised about. I've been trying some different genres lately, but historical fiction is definitely my go-to. I read 3 romance, 3 literary fiction, 3 contemporary, and my average rating that I've given books is 3.85. So I've got 2 3 stars, 2 5 stars, and some in between there. All right, so those are my stats. Let's get into it. So the first question is, best book you've read this year. I gave 2 books 5 stars. Burial Rites by Hannah Kent and 7 Days in June by Tia Williams. Both are phenomenal. Loved them both for different reasons. I don't think I could pick because they're just so different. But those are my top 2. Burial Rites is a historical fiction. It is based on the last person in Iceland who was executed. It was a woman in 1829, if I have my memory serves. It was very emotional. Very emotional. And then the second book was 7 Days in June. That was a more recent read for me. It was a romance. I enjoyed it so much. I didn't want to put it down. Both of these books, I was like, especially for barrier rights, the writing, I was just transported to 1800s Iceland every time I picked up the book. Even like just a couple paragraphs in, I was there. The writing was so phenomenal. And then same thing with 7 Days in June. This is another book I just couldn't put down. I literally was cooking and reading. I was just reading every single moment I can. And while I really enjoy reading, that's not super normal for me. So, those are my top two. Now let's translate that to knitting. So the best knit I've made this year. I'm gonna go with these shorts. These are the Jog On shorts by Knititude. I test knit them in brown, and I made a second pair in gray. Probably I like the gray ones better because I was able to modify them to my body. I do have an entire finished object video for both of these. They're together in one video. It's called I Knit Shorts, ! But I love these. These were a surprise. I didn't know that I would love them so much, but they were quick to knit. They fit my need for stack and net projects. You can spice them up, like I just did a little bit of a contrast on the I-cords, but and then here I used a bunch of different sizes to really fit the curves of my body from what I had learned in this first pair. And I wear both of these pairs all of the time. They are my go-to shorts for when I come home and I'm lounging. You'll find me in a pair of these shorts. I love them so much. So that's probably, and like I said, I think the gray one wins out. So these are probably my favorite knit of the year, or best knit so far. These are fun and casual, but I could see a more elegant, elevated top or something beating these out later on. Okay, I'm gonna try and carry on with this a little bit faster. Best sequel I've read this year. I haven't read a sequel, so it's Void for the books, but I've got to probably give it to, in terms of knitting, it's not necessarily what I would call a sequel, but I knit a second version of these same Jog On shorts, which again, I wear all the time. So that's a contender. But also a contender is this hat. This is the Marled Knit Bucket Hat by Pam Sapienza. And this is the small version. This is a little bit of a modification of the large version. And so these are the two I finished. This is just about done. This is a very, very large version. So as you can see, knitting 3 of them and making modifications each time. Well, as you can see in general, I do enjoy knitting things and then making them my own, knitting them again if they're simple enough or if I enjoyed it enough the first time. So you see that with the shorts, and you see that here with these 3 hats. I can see myself making 1 or 2 more of these hats too, because they are, like I said, fit that bill of what I'm looking for this year. So those are the 2 contenders. Let's give it to the bucket hats, since I just talked about the knit shorts. So those are my best sequel of the year. Next question is new release you haven't read yet but want to. And I am going to actually choose to delete the new release part because I feel like I'm always a little bit behind, and focus on the you haven't read yet but want to part. One of the books I haven't read yet but definitely want to, and I actually just rented it from the library, is Pachinko by Min Jin Lee. I am so excited. It's back to the historical fiction, and this is about a Korean family from what I'm understanding. So it's from a different culture and different area of the world than what I'm typically reading. So I'm excited to expand my horizons and purposely read books that are beyond my scope of like my comfort zone, what has become my comfort zone. So that is the next book that I'm really excited to read. I've heard amazing things about this book, so I'm excited for that one. Now, the next object I want to knit is, so there's a lot, if you've been watching my videos again, you'll know I want to make a million hats. I'm super in a summer hat craze right now, but let's try and get onto that. So that's non-hat related item that I want to make next. And the top of my queue is the Cozy Celtic Raglan by Knititude. I love her pattern. She's the same designer that made the shorts I was showing. And second in my queue, the Cozy Celtic Raglan is more of a winter garment, but I do want to make it because I've had this specific product in mind for like a Christmas holiday sweater for so long in a bright red. So I finally had the yarn. But as far as a summer top, the throw over, as well as the peep show pullover. So the throw over by Andrea Mowry, I want to shorten and make short sleeves. And the peep show pullover by Morgan Woltersdorf is her name, is another summer top. So those are two at the top of my queue that I want to be making. None of those things I just listed are new though. They're all within the last few years. So that's why I deleted the new part. Most anticipated release for the second half of the year is what's up next. And I just told you I'm pretty behind when it comes to books, so I don't have one of the top of my list, but I do know that Celeste Ng, she is an author that I just read Everything I Never Told You by her, and I really enjoyed it. She also wrote Little Fires Everywhere, so I'm curious to read. I've never read Little Fires Everywhere. I would like to give her third novel a try, because I did enjoy this one. I liked the show for Little Fires Everywhere. I want to see what the next one is. That comes out later this year. So that's probably my answer there. As far as knitting goes, this year that I really tried to focus on is not buying so many patterns. I have a million patterns that I want to knit. I don't have enough time to knit all the patterns I have. So just being very selective in the patterns that I purchase and make, because I have so many amazingly beautiful ones. So let's say the Any Knititude pattern. Biggest surprise is that I have not knit a top this year. Oh, I was talking about books, but I got too excited about knitting. So we're gonna go knitting first this time. The biggest surprise, I have not knit a top this year. The only garments I've made for myself are those 2 pairs of shorts, and I made a cardigan for my mom, and I'm working on a cardigan for my sister, but I don't have I haven't cast on a top for me. I have one that's sitting from last year that I haven't picked up again, but that'll be on my list when I continue on with my stash busting and my knitting. But I haven't cast on a top this year. I haven't finished a top this year. I haven't, for myself, nothing, which is crazy. I feel like I knit so many last year and the year before, a few. But yeah, it's been all about the accessories this year and a lot of gift knitting. A lot of gift, donation knitting has really been the focus of this year. So that's my biggest knit surprise. My biggest book surprise was 7 Days in June. I can't believe that I just loved this romance so much. I told you historical fiction is my go-to. 7 Days in June was so amazing. I loved the book so much because there was also so much more in that romance. There was like so many more elements to the book, and it wasn't like cliche or didn't have just like a lot of cliche tropes. I didn't feel like, at least. So I really appreciated the book. I liked it. Let's move on. Favorite new author. So my favorite author of this year is either going to be Kristen Hanna. I read my first Kristen Hanna book, The Four Winds is the one I read, and also Tia Williams. Same thing I just said. I really enjoyed her writing. I would definitely pick up. I have her past books on my list. They're just checked out and not available at the library. But those are my two. Kristen Hanna, everyone loves, but I really loved it. I would definitely read more of her books. That's the historical fiction element. And Tia Williams, I would be very intrigued to read. I am very intrigued to read more of her books. So favorite new, let's call it designer. I'm going to go with Pam Sapienza, because I've I've made basically 3 of her hats. So, and I want to make more. So we're going to go definitely with Pam Sapienza of The Knitting Place. She's not super new, but she doesn't have many patterns. She has a crochet bucket hat that I really want to make. So I will be purchasing that pattern most likely soon and trying that out, and continuing to make these and following her. I really like what she's come up with. So yeah, Pam Sapienza is my favorite new designer. Book that made you cry. I'm emotional when I read my books. I'm going to tell you that right now. But the book that made me cry the most was Burial Rites. Oh, at the end when, I can't talk about it because I don't want to spoil it, but I cried. So, yeah. That's the book that made me cry. In a great way. I mean, it was really sad, but you know, you're really connected to the characters. Knit project that made me cry. Nothing actually made me cry, but we can say this is a hat that I'm attempting to just like freestyle crochet based on an anthropology hat I've seen, and I'm very frustrated with it. It's not coming out how I had in my head. So you'll hopefully maybe see the progress of this continue, maybe not, but this is a frustration knit. So yeah, didn't make me cry, but it makes me very frustrated because it's disappointing that it's not coming out how I wanted it to. Book that made me happy. 17th of June made me happy. Like I said, there's more serious elements to it, but overall the love story made me happy. Red, White, and Royal Blue was a very fun book, so that made me happy too. Knit that made me happy. All of them. Like, these are making me really happy. I'm really enjoying them. I love the shorts. I love when I make something and I wear it all the time. Like, probably the shorts have made me the happiest. I made this shawl. I really like this shawl too. This is the Caramel Shawl by Katarina Kazka. And I will have a finished object video coming out about this soon. It's just a really nice pattern, and anyway, you'll hear more about it. The reasons I cast it on weren't happy. I cast it on because I wanted to support a Ukrainian designer when Russia invaded Ukraine. Again, I know it's probably a performative action, but it made me feel good, which is completely selfish. It makes me happy that I was able to support a Ukrainian designer, and it makes me happy that I finished this. This is my most complicated knit of the year, I would say. And it's not that complicated, but it is my most complicated of the year. So lots of my knitting makes me happy, and just knitting in general makes me happy. Most beautiful book you've bought/received this year. So I don't actually read like the physical copies of the book these days. I just read them on the Libby app. But looking at the covers, scrolling through, and the Vanishing Half is really nice too because of the artwork, like how beautiful it is. So we'll go with the Vanishing Half. And then the answer here is my spinning. My most beautiful knit project is my spinning. Oh, it was just so beautiful to me. I think it did such a good job. There are some places where I wish I would have spun it a little bit tighter, but overall, I'm very, very pleased with this. I think it's so pretty. I'm very, very pleased. And my most beautiful project is this spin. What books do you need to read by the end of the year? I don't need to read any books. I would like to read I don't need to read any books by the end of the year. I have a lot on my list, and they're in no particular order. It's in the order of when they become available at the library. Off the top of my head, Unearth We're Briefly Gorgeous, I think it's called. What a beautiful title, right? So that title just has me. I want to try reading some Colleen Hoover books. Chanel Clayton. Oh, I should have said Chanel Clayton for something. I haven't read any of her books this year, but that's because she's so popular, but I love her. She's one of my favorite authors, and some of her books I would like to read this second half of the year too. So, again, doing a very bad job of giving concise answers. Headed over to Ravelry. What do I have to do by the end of the year? Nothing, but I'm on a mission to decrease my stash. I also want to make a video about that too, because why not? And so I want to make some more hats, definitely. I'm still in that summer hat mood. I'm also having a knit along, so if you want to knit along with me, I would absolutely love that. No one's joined yet, but I would love it so much if you wanted to. Decreasing my stash is my number one goal for the rest of the year, but the plans I have that include my stash are the Cozy Self-Knit Raglan I talked about, the Throwover by Andrea Mowry. I want to knit another ranunculus. I want to knit a summer secret crop and try an attempt to embroider on it. I attempted to embroider on these shorts and it was a fail. The Peep Show pullover I told you about. I have yarn for the Afterglow top. Those are the 6 projects I have yarn for currently. And then the rest of the yarn I have is just miscellaneous. So that's what's going into some of these hats, various scrappy projects. All of that I would love to do by the end of the year. I don't think that will happen, but those are my thoughts. Okay, that's the end. We reached the end, finally, we made it. I'm sorry that my answers weren't super concise, but I hope this was fun to do a crossover from book talk / booktube over to knitting. KnitTube or whatever you want to call it over here, the fiber arts. So thank you for being here. I hope you enjoyed. My name is Emily again, and I am so excited that you are here. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe if you want to see more videos, and I would love to hear some of your favorite book / knitting or crochet projects that you've made so far in 2022 as well. Have a wonderful rest of your day.